Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Gershon with another BetterHealth webinar. I am absolutely delighted to have an amazing CEO speaker here today in Stephen Towe. He will tell you about the really incredible things that Leo Cancer Care is doing to advance cancer therapies. Stephen is a remarkable person. He is a scientist, a physicist, an entrepreneur, a visionary who really cares about patients and is very much aligned with what is important for Endeavor and the ecosystem that we're building out with the BetterHealth platform. So first, I want to just say thank you once again for everybody who is contributing. Really could not make this webinar successful as a platform for sharing and collaborating and bringing leaders together without the participation of everyone on an ongoing basis has been just tremendously supportive of the work that we're doing at Endeavor. I want to just outline in brief a little bit of the focus of the webinar. So the goal really is to bring amazing leaders in emerging companies, in more advanced unicorns, highlighting the work that they are doing to improve patient outcomes. We will spend 1 week per month focusing in on women CEOs and CEOs of color, and we will spend one session per month on a big picture macro perspective. Where is the world going with these incredible changes in technology, science, and medicine? Who is making the investments, and how does that shape and reshape the healthcare system? And ultimately, what does this mean for you as a patient, or you as someone who knows a friend or family who is a patient? So those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, because I do believe that Leo Cancer Care and the work that Stephen is doing are revolutionary and will change the shape of cancer therapy. And he will tell you about what he sees as a vision for the company over the next several years. Let me turn it over to Stephen. And Stephen, if you can introduce yourself a bit to everyone here to give us a background, and then I would love to dive into your journey from scientist to entrepreneur, and now really doing some incredible work with prominent organizations like Stanford, who recognize the value that Leo Cancer Care is bringing to the cancer therapy sector. So, Stephen, if you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this and the fantastic work that you're doing with Endeavor and building this platform for partnership and innovation. So really appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this. Thank you for the introduction as well. So I am Stephen Towe. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Leo Cancer Care, a physicist by background. I always say that, and you ask me whether I still identify as a scientist. I think being a physicist, you're always a physicist, and it's always that mentality and way of thinking. But now as the leader and CEO of Leo Cancer Care. And as you said, my passion really is driving improvements in patient care, improvements in patient outcomes within radiation oncology.
Fantastic. So I'd like to dig in a little bit more about this journey, this transition, because it's not easy going from an academic environment or a scientific platform to business. Embedded in what we're doing here in Better Health is a platform which recognizes, rewards, and promotes great leadership. And for us, great leadership in the investments that we make in Endeavor, in our venture fund, our second venture fund, as well as in our venture studio, is about recognizing people like yourself who can make this transition and bring leadership qualities to running great companies. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that transition for you. You know, being a scientist can be somewhat siloed. Being a CEO, you have to have your hands in many things at the same time. So, collaboration, team building, enrolling people, these are all leadership qualities, building trust, building loyalty. When you're dealing with investors, you know, it is a whole different way to present yourself. So, I'd like you to just speak to that entrepreneurial shift.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I got into radiation oncology now about 12 years ago. So it's always been my passion. And like a lot of people in the radiation oncology space or oncology as a whole, I did so because of personal experience. So I lost my father, unfortunately, to cancer while I was studying physics. And for me, the ability then at that point in my life, as early as 18, I was then, I knew exactly what I wanted to achieve with my life. I wanted to use my passion for physics and in particular for particle accelerators and partner that with a drive to improve the quality of life for cancer patients. I wasn't able to do anything, I was 18 when my dad died. I wasn't able to do anything for him or for our family, but the ability to deliver technology into this space that will have an impact on others going through that is really my life goal. There are lots of ways of making money that are far easier than running a startup company, and you've got to have that drive, that passion that's beyond just a financial gain to make a successful startup company. So, like many people in the industry, that was my reason why, that was my drive behind doing this. But I got into radiation oncology originally as a physicist and spent 5 years at Electa, which is the second biggest company out there making radiotherapy devices. As a physicist, I was developing these devices and fantastic technology that we were delivering to the market. But every device that I was involved in building at that point was getting bigger and more complicated and more expensive. And that was really only serving a fraction of the market. There were a lot of people, a lot of cancer patients out there that needed lower cost technology, but lower cost without sacrificing on quality. So I actually ended up getting involved in a research group over at the University of Sydney with Professor Paul Keel. And a spin out of that research group, which was originally called NanoX. And originally I was brought into that group as somebody with industry experience. So again, in a very technical role. And like a lot of people that make that transition from the technical scientific side into entrepreneurship and being a CEO, it was really when that company was faced with challenges raising capital. Great ideas are one thing, but finding the capital to make those great ideas a reality and bring them into the clinic is a real challenge. So at the point that group struggled to bring the capital to the table to build this business, I took over as CEO in 2018. And to be perfectly honest, it was something I never planned on doing. If you'd have asked me when I was a kid what I was going to be when I grew up, it certainly wasn't a CEO. But it's the passion for this business and the technology that we're developing and the difference it's already making to cancer patients' lives that inspired me to take on that challenge of raising capital. And over the last few years have brought significant capital to the table and driven the company through its growth stages to where it is now.
Yeah, fantastic overview. I want you to talk a little bit about your partner in this process because, very often I meet young CEO entrepreneurs. They're passionate, they're driven. Um, they uh, they look at capital in a very kind of specific way. They look at capital as a make or break for them. And I want to focus a little bit on the personal side, the collaboration that you have with your partner, as a catalyst for moving things forward, because that's not often front and center for many of the entrepreneurs. My personal position, and I've written an article for Fast Company about this, is that companies don't fail because they can't raise capital. They can't raise capital because they're missing some leadership qualities that resonate with investors. So I'd like you to speak to that issue about
Yeah,
leadership, collaboration, partnership as it pertains to the goals of the company and growing the company.
yeah, absolutely. So my partner in founding Leo Cancer Care, the co-founder of this company, is Professor Rock Mackey, who has been, as a first-time co-founder and a first-time CEO, he's been really like a kind of father figure in many ways. He's been through this entire journey. Previously founded a company called Towe Therapy that he took all the way from an idea at the University of Wisconsin all the way through to $1 billion IPO back in 2007. So he's been a fantastic mentor, a fantastic partner in building this business. But businesses don't grow from a single person or from a couple of people. They grow from building broader teams and establishing broader partnerships outside of just your internal team as well. And I think that's something that Rock and I have really focused on through the growth of this business. Our own internal partnership between the two of us and that communication and leadership style, but also really putting a lot of effort into establishing partnerships and working with incredible groups that you mentioned, people like Stanford and Research, Mevion, Hitachi, for example, some of the industry leading names that we've really focused on fostering those partnerships with.
Fantastic. One of the things that's important here is identifying a little bit about what is the problem that you're solving. So I'd like to dial in a little bit. What you're doing is very technical. It is a very important subsector, and I'd like very much to better understand and define the problem and then the solution.
Yeah, so we're in the radiation therapy space. And when people think about cancer care, they typically think about surgery. Everybody understands, everybody knows about surgery. You open the patient up, you cut the tumor out. That's really obvious. People also are very familiar with chemotherapy. You administer what is effectively poison, and that is then responsible for killing the tumor. But people are less familiar with radiation therapy. Even though radiation therapy is used for 50% of cancer patients, it's the one that people know the least about. And the problem, Martin, with radiotherapy globally, while it is an established oncology treatment, one of the big problems is the size, the cost, and complexity of current devices. And that size, cost, and complexity, broadly speaking, comes from the fact that we with all of the companies, all of the devices, we position a patient lay on a table, and we take a radiation source and we spin that round the patient, delivering these beams from different angles. And the intersection of all these beams sits the tumor. You effectively burn the tumor out of the patient. That's the way that radiotherapy has been done by all of the companies out there. And we really just looked at that and said, radiation therapy is fantastic. It saves people's lives. But doesn't it make more sense if rather than rotating 600 tons in some cases around a patient that's 100 kilos, 200 pounds, doesn't it make sense to keep that complicated, heavy, expensive equipment fixed and very, very slowly rotate the patient? So that's exactly what we're doing. We're reducing the size, cost, and complexity by changing the orientation and changing the way we deliver radiation. But we're also putting the patient in this upright posture. And that does two things, Martin. It first and foremost makes that patient feel less like a patient and more like a human being. If you Google pictures of patients, you'll see pages and pages and pages of people lying down. If you Google empowerment, empowered people, you'll see pages and pages and pages of people upright. So first and foremost, we make the patient feel less vulnerable, more in control of their surroundings being upright. Secondly, building on research data, publications from places like MD Anderson, Northwestern, MGH, the Paul Shearer Institute, all of these big powerhouse names, they've published that for a number of key indications, your organs actually move less when you're upright compared to when you're lay down. And I always say, whether you're playing darts in the pub, which gives my English background away, or whether you're targeting radiation at a cancerous tumor, if the thing you're trying to hit moves less, you should be more accurate with the delivery. So it's the same radiation therapy that we've always known and has saved so many lives, but we're packaging it and doing it in a way that is A, more cost effective, brings better health economics by keeping the radiation being fixed. B, creates this more empowering, more or less vulnerable experience for the patient, creates a better connection. And then thirdly, and still really to be built on from a clinical perspective as we start to treat patients, we believe that there are some real tangible clinical advantages to being positioned upright too.
No, that's great. As a physician, I have also been a patient, um, and seeing things from the other side of the white coat perspective. Um, everything as a patient sounds louder, feels colder, is more uncomfortable. Your anxiety level is very high, and anything that can be put in place to create an environment of safety, security, and comfort goes a long way in terms of uh, changing outcomes. The mind-body connection in healthcare is well known. The other piece is I want to dig a little bit more into the physics of this. So we're talking about particle beam radiation, which really is millimeter by millimeter. And so being able to keep a patient steady in position, historically has required some rather, draconian devices to keep that patient locked in place. And with that, there's still a lot of scatter, and there's still a lot of problems with alignment. So I want to talk a little bit about this because it goes to the next level beyond comfort. It really goes to effectiveness and side effects.
Yeah, there's a lot of fantastic points in there. And I don't know, Martin, whether you're able to bring up the image of the device that we've developed here at Leo, because this really shows where we're coming to, and a fantastic paper that was published from Centre Léon Barrard in Lyon in France last year. They looked at that motion. They looked at that and said, okay, fantastic. It creates an overall better experience for the patient. There are some of these potential benefits in organ motion that come from upright. But first and foremost, let's ask the important questions here. Let's look at this technology and see how much patients really do move when they're upright compared to supine. And I think first and foremost, you hit a really good point there on that connection between mind and body, and having patients feeling more comfortable, less vulnerable, results in a reduction in motion. People are more relaxed, and when they're more relaxed, they move less. So that's a big factor that we've been exploring. But you can see here the technology that we're talking about is effectively an upright patient positioning system, looks a little bit like a chair, and then an integrated dual energy CT. So the concept here is that the patient is positioned on this chair, and this CT ring that you can see there comes down and images the patient prior to treatment, and then the particle treatment beam is delivered to that patient, and then they can move and be rotated on that patient positioning system.
Yeah,
And go ahead, Martin.
no, I was just going to say one of the amazing things about this story is the fact that so many things are pulled together in one place. So you have a shielded room, it's efficient in terms of the size. You have the CT, to confirm particle beam location. So this really is leading kind of to the next series of questions, which is, how are you evaluating this? Now you're in Stanford, you're rolling that out. It's early days, in terms of the company's growth, but you've made incredible, advances, incredible traction. Um, Talk to me a little bit about what you see as kind of the next level, the next step in this process, where you're gathering information, you're doing, treatments, and you're getting data from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, we strongly believe this is the future of not only particle therapy, but the entire radiation therapy space. It's very rare that a technology can come along and offer potential clinical advantage, for sure improvements in patient experience, and health economic improvements all in one package. It's quite easy to do one of those three things, but to do three at the same time with a single technology is almost unheard of. And I think that's why we've seen such rapid adoption of this technology by world leading institutions. You know, this technology is going into Stanford, UW Health, McLaren, Hampton, Centre Léon Barrard in Lyon. These are all real heavy hitters, but we're not stopping there. You know, we can see the advantages first and foremost to the patient. We believe in the improvements here for patient care. We're taking this really as a global solution. We want to bring particle therapy to places like Indonesia, places where you've got 280 million people in the population and very little access to conventional radiotherapy infrastructure, never mind proton therapy. So we have packaged this solution together with partners like Hitachi and Mevion and Research into something that's not just available to centers like Stanford, but something that everybody can really think as a viable solution into their clinic. And that's where we need to get to with particle therapy.
So important what you're doing, and there's so many great questions. I want to put some of these questions up on the screen so that you can address some of them here. Um, Here is one. Thank you for the presentation. There are compact devices um, that are designed to treat cancers, such as photodynamic therapy. What do you think about them? Perhaps you can address that. It's such an interesting question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world of oncology is constantly changing. And that's what makes it such an exciting space from a technology point of view to be developing in. I'm a strong believer. I mean, people have come along for many, many years and said radiotherapy won't be around in 5 years, won't be around in 10 years. And I think, you know, I've been hearing that the entire time I've been in the space. For me, cancer is such a complex disease to treat. There's so many actual diseases that fall under that banner of cancer. The best way today and the best way of treating tomorrow these cancer patients is with multiple different treatment techniques. That's why for years we focused on surgery and chemo and radiotherapy, immunotherapy coming in now, and a whole host of others. So I think, you know, the technology will continue to develop and will be used in conjunction. Many of these new devices will be used in conjunction with the three main pillars of surgery, chemo, and radiation therapy. And then in terms of AI, I think that has a huge part to play. We're already seeing that play a huge part in radiation oncology. Our ability to improve image quality, for example, in the imaging with AI is a very, very obvious application. The clearer we can see the anatomy, the more precisely we can tailor our treatments to it. So I think AI has a huge part to play going forward in radiation oncology.
Yeah, fantastic questions. And I just want to take this time once again to thank everyone, particularly engaging, asking questions. If you do engage, please let us know where you're calling in from, where you're dialing in from. If you have any particular questions that we are unable to answer today, we'll be more than happy to email you a response if you include your email. And I just want to put up one other response here. This is from Vicky. I think what you're doing really speaks to a lot of people. Vicky is a fantastic CEO entrepreneur in her own right, dealing with some major healthcare problems um, in the field of infection. And she, like you, is hardworking, creative, and visionary. So really appreciate everyone, chiming in and letting us know your thoughts about some of the things that we're talking about today, because this is once again about an opportunity to collaborate. So this will be a little bit of an opportunity now, for me to give a shout out for Leo Cancer Care. And for people who are listening, whether you're an industry, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an investor, if you feel that there is something that you want to connect, to Stephen about, please feel free to email him directly or to contact me, and I'm happy to make those connections. So one of the things I want to kind of shift now into is kind of a crystal ball. Like, where do you see the company going? And that, I think, speaks to the collaboration efforts that I just mentioned. For any company to grow, you need collaboration partnerships, both strategic and financial. You need to bring in different perspectives and points of view in order to make good decisions. This is a network and an ecosystem that we're hoping at Endeavor and in BetterHealth that we can promote and grow over the course of years. So, where do you see the company going in the next 5+ years using your crystal ball? And what are the things that you need to help the company grow?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on the importance of partnership and finding those collaborations. Healthcare has a reputation of being slow. And I think if you look at the growth we've had in this business already over the last few years, it's been anything but slow. And the reason for that is not myself, it's not Rock, it's in part our internal team and the work that they've done, but it's the strength in partnership. People like Mevion, Hitachi, Research, our clinical partners, Centinel, Barard, Stanford, those kind of big partnerships that we've established that have helped us grow far faster than we ever would have done on our own. So, if I look forward to what comes next for Leo Cancer Care and where the future lies for us, continuing to build those partnerships. We really want to be working with every single vendor in the particle therapy space. We want to be extending far outside of just proton therapy. We really want to be touching now on carbon ion therapy, BNCT, very high energy electrons, really all modalities that can benefit from this technology. And then use that really as a springboard into conventional radiotherapy as well. And as I say, the focus is not just on those top tier academic institutions in the US. We're starting with them so that we can, work with them to really fine tune and hone in the technology. But then we want to take this technology to a global market. We want to bring high quality cancer care to places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Latin America, Africa, you name it. We believe that patients in those markets will benefit from this technology.
Absolutely agree on everything that you just outlined there. And I just want to highlight the incredible responses that you're getting, from our audience here. I'm going to put a couple up because they're already reaching out and they want to make introductions. So Sarah is just, a world-class physician and businesswoman, who, cares deeply about improving the healthcare system. So feel free. I will pass on her information directly to you. Um, I I have no doubt that a connection that she can make for you will be an interesting discussion in the very least. Elodie also chimes in. She's an up and coming emerging CEO in the plug and play community where I am an investor. I can't say enough about the plug and play environment to harvest incredible CEOs. And we're particularly keen at Endeavor about supporting women CEOs in their efforts to improve healthcare and the system in general, and certainly patient outcomes. So thank you, Elodie, for chiming in. Um, Really, I think that one thing that I want to move to now is, um, you touched a little bit on the digital aspect of healthcare. You touched a little bit on the AI component. The integration of different components in healthcare, to me, is an important next chapter. Whether it's the integration of electronic healthcare records, which is not a seamless integration right now because there's so many different platforms, or it's the integration of various types of treatments, diagnostics. That is going to be a huge wave of change, which is going to create more information, which is focused on decision making and outcomes. What do you see in terms of the integration of bits of, and pieces of information? And you mentioned a little bit about imaging. How is that going to integrate into some of the cancer therapies, that you're going to be providing in the future? What do you see as an important element of that?
Yeah, I mean, the Leo technology really sits at that intersection between diagnostic radiology, imaging, and radiation oncology. We're talking about improving the level of image guidance, adding diagnostic quality CT at the treatment position, which is really something that's pushing the boundaries in terms of imaging within radiation therapy. So we kind of sit at that intersection of imaging and treatment. And I think we're already seeing across the board in this space a tighter and tighter connection between the two. And AI is really driving that. There's a lot of people that are pushing the boundaries of image quality by utilizing huge databases of diagnostic quality scans. I think one of the things I'm really keen to drive is better standardization of patient posture. If you go to different clinics, you might see them set up patients in slightly different positions based on their indications. And the posture of the patient and having different postures at different clinics is bound to impact the clinical effectiveness, the orientation of one organ relative to another. But we don't really use that today as a degree of freedom. We don't really standardize across it because we've got no way of collecting data. We position all patients lay flat on a table today, and there's very little data that comes back from that. Because our patient positioning system, every single element of the patient posture is motorized and controlled, you're able to collate and see, well, I can see that clinic over there set all of their breast patients up in that position compared to this one over here. Let's dig into that a little bit more and look for that standardization and try and find that data-driven approach to patient
Right.
posture with radiation oncology.
No, that's such a great point. The ability to be uniform in your outcome. I mean, part of what AI really does well is predictive value. And so being able to gather large amounts of data, being able to look at that in terms of predictive value, I think is absolutely critical. The other thing that I would focus in on is on the patient experience. So you talked about it in terms of comfort and psychology, but as a patient in the past, I wanted to know about information in a seamlessly kind of easy way, even though I'm a physician and can kind of put things together. So one of the things that I think was brought up here was the notion of using technology like virtual reality or other advanced technologies. And I really hope that some of those technologies create a better user interface and user experience where you have more control as a patient. So being able to understand the effectiveness of the therapy that they just had, I mean, there's no question that going in, for therapy is a scary endeavor.
For
And
sure.
and the anxiety that is created is, well, was it effective? How well did we do with this? And so being able to integrate some of the new cloud-based systems where patients can have a better understanding in real time, I think would be something very exciting. I think Elodie brought up some mention here about XR and 3D imaging. That would be a very interesting conversation to have, to see where that is taking this type of patient therapeutic interaction. What do you think about things like that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the more information that you can get and the more reassurance that you can get from as a patient, the more positive your mindset, And again, it comes back to that point you made of that really strong, well understood link between mind and body. Having a positive attitude throughout your treatment results in better clinical efficacy. It's a really well known link. So I think it starts even before the point of, is the radiation effective? Even simple things like, can I, as the patient, see that I'm definitely in the same position that I was for the last course of radiation, and be able to engage and be more a part of that treatment experience rather than just a passenger through it. And I think upright patient positioning and having the patient really in the room improves that communication and that understanding of that clinical setting no end. From the communication with the clinician, the therapist that's setting you up, even to being then able to engage with various different screens as the patient that can show you different elements of that treatment while it's being delivered. So it's very difficult to do that when you're lay on your back and you can only see one ceiling tile as a machine spins around you. It's a completely different experience that we're creating, having the person in control and really engaged with their treatment experience. And I think it opens up a whole world of possibilities in terms of new levels of engagement and feedback during that treatment experience.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, this is all about the patient-centric care that obviously is focused in on outcomes, but it is also focused in on the patient experience as a human being. So I want to first circle back again to thank everybody who has logged in, and just a quick shout out to Vicky, Mustafa, Nikhil, and Jenny, uh, Yahinger, Swati. Swati made some, very kind comments about the platform that we're trying to put together. This collaborative effort, I think, rings true specifically in this webinar about people reaching out to you, and I'll pass on their contact information to you directly, Stephen. I want to also pay note that next week we're going to have a fantastic discussion that I think everyone should really tune in for, about cancer therapy, an extension of what we're doing here. That focus really is on a lot of AI technology and about how technology is being used to focus in on identifying important patient interests and concerns. So, Stephen, are there any last thoughts or any last words that you would like to talk about before we finish the webinar for today?
I think just to say again to you, Martin, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this platform, to be a part of this ecosystem that you're creating here, and for the engagement of everybody that's left their thoughts and questions today. Please do feel free to reach out. I'm always interested in engaging further in advancing patient care within radiation oncology, within oncology as a whole. So just to say thank you very much, and it's been a real pleasure speaking with you again today.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I look forward to our next webinar on Tuesday at noon. Stephen, if you can stay online while I finish the broadcast here, we'll have a closing chat. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for tuning into the BetterHealth webinar.